what would my next 3 to 5 moves be, combined with learning how to swim with the river? I'm going to leave and get some water because I've been talking way too much. I'll be right back. And I want to see what kind of plan you might come up with that, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Got it.
Got it.
Oh my god, this is a lot. Also, oh my god, this poll, y'all, which is better, green Danny, regular Danny, 50-50. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Come on, everybody. This is not the... Look, I even have a purple light, which kind of matches Michelle's vibe.
Yeah, we're both purple. They're like, now they're both purple.
It almost looks like this. Your broadcast looks so good, it's like we coordinated. That's how good my broadcast...
Don't tell them we didn't. We did.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. All right, cool, and thank you to the gifted sub there as well. All right, no more from my chat. Let's focus on this. So, all right, so for now, I have a couple options for the lesson. One option I prepared, and it was, like you said, originally for Nico, now for you, which is good, but it is, I'm going to pick different positions for you, so don't worry. It's more like teaching you like what I'm talking about as far as like muscles in chess that build on each other, where you start at a basic thing and you learn to speak the pattern by the end. But I want to get into that maybe a little later. To start, I wanted to see just what openings you're playing, because you said you're playing a lot. And I want to make sure you're being consistent, because one way you're going to slow the learning curve, or is it speed up the I forget. But one way the learning curve is better is if you make sure you're being consistent with your approaches to stuff and not just like throwing caution to win every time. So why don't you play white and I'll play black, and we'll just test a little bit on our board here.
Okay, so this is a new game. This isn't the Tina game.
Yeah, we're just going to start from scratch instead of going over the Tina game.
We don't need to look at that game.
Good.
All right, cool.
So you just play white. So are you playing D4 most of the time?
Yeah, I'm playing the London. I think I'm playing the London.
You're playing the Levy-Rosman systems.
The Levy-Rosman system.
I'm going to start roasting him on stream for coaching all of his students the same London. So.
Well, I was like, we're all going to show up and everyone's going to do the London, and we're just going to... It's going to be like that meme where both people are like, stick them up, and we're both each other, you know, right. Like reveal our match.
I mean, jokes aside, there's nothing wrong with the London, and Levy knows that, and he knows that I know that, but I just like to tease him because he has obviously been coaching people in Pogchamps for a while, and it's fine and good. So I'm just gonna test out a little bit of oddness, and we'll just see where we go. And all right, so we'll play this way. Okay, good stuff. You feel comfortable so far? You've been here before?
Yes.
Okay. And this one here?
Yeah.
Okay, you're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I shouldn't have been okay, but...
No. Remember, this is a practice. This is not like you're playing like straight up here. I'm just trying to get an idea. There are positions where this is okay, and part of the reason is that the pawns come together, and they kind of over-grip the center. Right, so you sort of increase your bind on the dark squares, and
that was part of my plan.
Okay, so if you have the right idea,
it was not part of my plan.
but in this position, I think it's probably less good, because in this particular move order, I'll follow that by taking and attacking, and what you'll end up feeling is actually the pain of having left your pawn behind.
Yeah,
your pawn should be here instead of where it is. It's actually a double attack on these two. So that idea in general. That idea in general is not something to dismiss, and the reason that's critical is because, again, I'm just going to emphasize this, especially in the beginning, if this is our first lesson and we do a few, or even throughout the day, is that, remember, like, try to change your thinking when I'm giving you advice. Like, try to apply it and think of what he's saying should be applying to every time I get this London pawn structure, not just this particular game. What he's going to say here is applying to how to evaluate the option of this trade, not whether it was good or bad in this particular game. And I'm going to make an extra effort. I always do, and I'll clarify when it's not. If it's ever very specific, I'll be like, hey, this is actually normally not the case, but this tactic here is really important. But overall, that's how you have to. The earlier people embrace that line of thinking in chess, the faster the learning curve is, because because if you focus on the fact that I said on move 7 NBD2 that this was a mistake because of this particular tactic here, you're going to be like, what? I'm never going to remember that crap. Like, I don't even know what he's talking about, right? But if the idea is, look, when this trade is offered, your advantage is usually you want to retreat it to this square, and the reason is almost universally is that if they take it, you'll take with the H pawn, and you've got the rook and bishop open. But and that actually helps you because you have an attack potentially on the king side. We know that's an idea in the London to use our pieces together over there on the king side. But if you are in a position, for example, let's say where I'm going to make a couple random moves and make it so that that tactic maybe isn't an issue with queen out to b6. If you're in a position like where you're already castled, taking here may actually help you. You're increasing your grip on the center. And in this position, if you're already castled, you might not actually retreat the bishop and let them take it, because now if you take with the h-pawn, you don't have your rook here anymore, so it's kind of not that big of a deal. So what are we taking away for future London games? What we're saying is, all right, in general, this trade is not the end of the world, and it can actually increase our strength. But overall, if we're not castled yet, universally, this tends to be the right retreating move, because it's almost never a good idea for them to take and help improve your attack.
And then if that occurs, would I aim to castle queenside? It's
a great question. Honestly, we can get very specific, but I'll show you a cool tactic because it will apply, and this kind of thing could occur in a Pogchamps game. Here comes a quick win, right? I'm never trying to coach people to get quick wins, but this particular kind of position, with the double pawns here, we're going to take a snapshot of this. If someone castles carelessly, this is how dangerous this position already is for black. You actually are threatening the move g4 here. This is a very common tactic in the London, and the reason is that this knight can't move without you just winning this pawn and just like destroying them. I mean, now the game is like over. You can do a number of things here just to get really funky and fresh. There's like ideas like this where you're just like mating them on the H file and the game is over.
Why haven't I done that before? Well, oh my god!
You may not have had this. I don't know. Maybe you have. Maybe you've had a position like this where they took and they castled a little bit carelessly, and you had the opportunity to get really aggressive over here on the king side. And the reason this is so good is because even if they don't take, they're already in trouble, because your threat is g5, which will kick the knight, who guards the h-pawn, and they're still in trouble. So they try to play something like h6, and now you play g5 anyway, and you're just blowing open the door here to destroy them. Probably black's best move is actually a move like this, g6.
Does this have to occur only when double pawns are on G, or can I do the same thing? Like, let's say I hadn't like blundered the bishop, not blundered, but let's say I still had my bishop.
Like is this G4 move an idea? Even if
yeah.
So I would say yes and no. One is, let's remember, why is it so effective in the way I'm showing it? It's partly because they took and opened the H file. So that idea of getting very aggressive is even more on the table because they opened the H file, and remember, you weren't castled yet. So this is kind of a perfect storm of potentially very dangerous things for black. But it's a good question because the idea of G4 is a very common one if you're going to be attacking on the king side. You asked a question earlier, like if this trade happened, would I be castling long? And one of the answers to that is, in addition to my G4 idea, is yeah. I mean, you could put the queen on a battery. You could develop the queen to a different square. And certainly, if you have the potential to throw caution to the wind on one side of the board, it makes sense that you put the king on the other side of the board, and just let you be a little more aggressive, right? Because what you'll end up with is those dynamics that are awesome in chess, where material is less important than timing. And that happens often when kings are on opposite sides of the board, because in those cases, you have the ability to throw everything in the kitchen sink. So small amounts of material can be sacrificed in order to open up attacking chances.
Okay.
So, all right. So this is a specific London lesson. I want to back up now and say that, one, that's a cool thing to add to your little, your weapon arsenal here, right? We can come back to this, but I wanted to do my initial job as a coach, kind of like, I want to switch now and have you play black, and I'm gonna probe your openings with e4 and d4 to see how you're playing with black, so that we know you're getting good positions.
Cool.
All right, so let's do this. So now I'll play white. We'll start with e4.
Okay, Hold on, let me switch my board around. Okay,
Cool. All right, so you're playing the Pirates. Now, who worked with you on that?
I was doing King's Indian.
And that's against D4, right? So if I play D4 instead, go ahead. What would you play against? So you would still play that, and if I play like here, okay, go ahead, keep playing.
Well, here reveals a weakness for sure.
Okay.
I definitely feel like I don't really know what I'm doing on the like black openings, if that makes sense. Like I don't know, because it's in response to what white is doing.
Okay.
I don't know how to see what they're doing and then be like, oh, this is a good idea to respond. Instead, I feel like I'm just sort of doing like the, like move the pawn out, move the bishop there, castle or whatever to make the dragon head or something.
Yeah. So there's two things about that are okay. Like one that's really not the end of the world. I mean, especially right now, because what you're saying is that you're like, look, I have an approach or I have a development scheme that I'm trying to commit to, sort of regardless of what they do, right? And as long as you understand the ideas within that, as long as you're not getting tricked within that, which we'll try to work on, then that's fine. And in fact, it's exactly what you would want to do at beginner stages, because like we said, it's going to increase the learning curve because you end up getting the same types of positions over and over. So even though you're going to make inevitable mistakes in those positions as you learn, you will make them less, right? It's not like you're getting random positions every game you play where you're sort of on your own. You're getting a position you're familiar with. The only thing is, yeah, we do want to be cognizant of the move orders at the same time and make sure that we're not being blind, right? Because the other way to look at it is you're being a horse with blinders and there's like checkmate in front of you and you're just refusing to see it, right? Yeah. So we want to do both, and I think this is fine. Let's play a few more moves just so I see how you're approaching the middle game, like what your ideas are, so then we can kind of back up. Yeah, this is actually, I see someone in my chat commenting on the dragon comment from you. This is actually, well, the reason this structure is called the dragon in the Sicilian is because it is the Chinese star constellation, the dragon star constellation in Chinese astrology or mythology, I forget. But yeah, this structure here, like if you just take a snapshot of it, so it's like it creates a dragon head. This is like the head of the dragon. So yes, it actually. So you were not misspeaking. I'm defending you to my chat, who was like questioning whether you should have called it dragon. So
I don't know.
Anyway, so this is fine. So now let's say I play here, and what is the idea? So now you've done it. Let's say nothing bad happened earlier. You've got your structure. You've got your dragon head. You've fee and ketoed your bishop and put your king to safety. What's the plan?
I feel like usually in my games at this point, I sort of like emerge from the ocean and look around and see what's above water at this point. So now I'll take a look up here and see sort of what you're doing.
Like highlight any squares you're thinking about for me. So
I'm thinking
just right click them.
I'm thinking I could move go c5.
Okay.
It essentially just like protect and push these pawns forward on the queen side.
Okay.
Generally speaking.
That's a good idea. In general, you want to work on the dark squares, whether it's with c5 or e5. And why do you think that is?
Is it because your bishop, one of your knights, and two of your extended pawns are on lighter squares?
Well, yeah. Well, currently? Actually, this bishop is on the dark square, right? The dark diagonal. And it's one of the key pieces in the game, so that what you're trying to do is... Oh, I see. You were commenting because on my pieces. Actually, that's kind of the same thing. So one example is white is overly strong on the light squares, and this pawn doesn't have any protection from other pawns, meaning you can't go back, right? So there's like even if the hell storm was being brought here, I can never reinforce it with a move like e3, right? Not allowed. So one reason that black is going to strike against the d4 pawn and the dark squares in the King's Indian is because white has extended the pawns on the light squares. But the other reason is that you also, in turn, are strong on the dark squares with this bishop. And so one of the tactics that really shows that to be aware of is a move like e5. And the reason this is fun is because at first it looks like you're losing a pawn, regardless of whether the queens are traded. We'll just leave them on for now, pretend that's not happening. If white takes the pawn, a very common tactic to be aware of is to move your knight with an unleashed attack on their knight. So you actually win back the pawn and open up an attack. So now when they take, you win back the knight. And now even though this is just a big, fancy, the smoke is cleared and material's equal, but if we're not just comparing material, we're comparing the position, black has gotten the better of it because this bishop is very strong. The position is opened up for your advantage because the dark squares are potentially very weak for white. And just overall, yes, it's close to equality, but it's a good position for you. It would be a good trade. So e5 is another one to add as an idea. And as you already said, c5 is also a very good idea. With one caveat I'd like to add to what you said. If the position stays closed, we no longer want to be passive over here with b6. Take a look at this position and think about what you've done with your pawns and where your strength is potentially with this bishop. And see if you can take a minute or so and come up with what might be a plan for black in this pawn structure. What might be an intuitive way you would approach attacking white's big strength and trying to continue to play on your potential dark square strengths on the board.
Okay.
It's a big question. I'm going to go grab some water.
Okay.
So just think about how you might and here's one, this is a very important critical thinking thing. I want you to remember this for Pogchamps in your games. If you ever are lost, if you ever being lost cannot be a bad thing all the time, right? Sometimes it's like you do feel lost, you're in a bad position. Other times it's just that you play 10 moves of opening theory and now you're like, all right, I did what I was supposed to do. Now what? Right? And that's usually where most chess players start playing what I like to call hope chess. You see a random tactic and you play it on the hope that it works. We know it's not going to work. Stop playing moves like that. Or people start playing one move chess where they play a tactic that might work, but the one move isn't really correlated to anything bigger picture. Right? So those are the two things that become like the dark path. That's like the blue pill. You don't want to take that pill. You want to take the opening your chess understanding pill, which is not one move chess, it's not hope chess. And so the thing you need to think about in those cases is two things. One is if I had 3 to 5 moves in a row, what would they be? And that's important because I'm asking you not to cheat. I'm not saying Michelle says, oh, I take here, then I take here, then I take the queen, then I take here, then I take the rook. Okay, that's not the plan we're asking for. That's fantasy chess, right? But what you may come up with is, in fact, this is what I would tell students. If you had to play 5 non-capture moves in a row, what would they be? This will often be like a good line for critical thinking. You'll say, okay, so now I'm on move 10. I've got Danny's advice. What would be my next 3 to 5 moves if I was allowed to play them with no disruption? And what that often ends up telling you is you start recognizing, oh, I would get that piece out because he's not playing. I would move those pawns there because that would open lines for my rook. I would do this, I would do that, right? And so that's tip number 1. The second tip to finding a plan is what direction are my pawns facing? This is called swimming with the river. Don't swim against the river, swim with the river. And so if you combine these two critical thinking tips I just gave you, what would my next 3 to 5 moves be combined with learning how to swim with the river? I'm going to leave and get some water because I've been talking way too much. I'll be right back. And I want to see what kind of plan you might come up with that, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Got it.
Got it.
Oh my god, this is a lot. Also, oh my god, this poll, y'all, which is better, green Danny regular data 50. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, let me figure out my plan here. Okay, so swim with the river. 3 to 5 non-capture moves in a row. Zoink, Scoob. Okay. What am I trying to do? Thinking time. Thank you, Garrett. Guys, I forgot my notebook because this was such a last-minute lesson. I gotta write down a lot of stuff. Ah! Okay, swim with the river. I don't even... Okay, here's a move.
Oh man, that was loud. You slammed my own door.
Hi!
Okay. Alright, we're back.
Okay, I had a couple questions first. When you say swim with the river, does that mean because of my current pawn structure, it's like a diagonal on the queen side of the board, like moving pieces through that side?
Yeah, and so in general, and again, sometimes the river will be obvious because you'll be playing like an open center game and the river's in the middle of the board. It's just like open files for the rooks, right? But it's about asking questions like, what are our pawns telling us to do? Because if we go with that, usually there's already good ideas waiting for us there. There's good tactics, there's opportunities. And so, yeah, what you just said, I saw what you had highlighted was also very good. It means this. It means this diagonal is open. Is this diagonal open?
No.
Right? It means this diagonal is open, right? Now, in theory, yes, this diagonal is open for the bishop. And that's not even the worst move because it gets a piece off the back rank. At this level, just it's good to get pieces in the game rather than not. But,
yeah, usually when I do that, though, like, they just move a pawn out. And then I'm like, all right,
and then you're like, now what, right? Yeah, exactly. They're like, okay, well, now your choice either go back or give up the bishop, which maybe you don't want to do. So that's very well said. So I was commenting on the beginner level thing to say, like, if someone's starting chess, I would never, as a good-hearted coach, not the abusive coaches I had, I would never say, oh, this is a bad move. I would say, you're getting a piece out, good job. But if we start thinking bigger picture than just one move at a time, what I'm pointing out is these lines are open, and actually, if you could, in your wildest dreams, have a rook or maybe two rooks on these open files, connected with the power of a bishop, who, by the way, owns a diagonal that is never going to be blocked again because these pawns have gone too far. They can't go back, right? So one plan, in fact, just to be like really forward with a plan, that idea is so clear here that one of the better moves for black in a practical level sometimes is just b5. Crazy, because here's the idea. If they take with the knight, they just lose their pawn right back. And now you really get in good shape. You've traded a center pawn for a wing pawn, which is better for you. You've gotten rid of a good pawn. So they take this way. Now there's an idea with a6. And this is actually known as the Benko Gambit, where black has actually sacrificed the queen side to get an initiative.
Gambit?
The Benko Gambit?
Benko Gambit.
Benko, named after famous Russian-American Grandmaster Pal Benko, the multiple-time U.S. champion. Pal Benko. Pal Benko was actually referenced several times in the Queen's Gambit, which one of the things they did really well in that series is they constantly did a balance of both fictional characters, but mixing in just enough real-life grandmasters of the time that it kept everyone on the edge of their seat. Anyway, so you don't have to play the Gambit, but the idea of that would be, so here might be 5 moves I would play based on this like test I gave you, right? I'm going to make bad moves for, or even good moves for white, but I'm just going to show you a fun idea. A crazy move even like this, and then I put the knight here because I'm supporting b5. They make some random move and I go here. And now they realize what I'm up to, or maybe they don't, I don't know. But at some point, I open up this side of the board. And I can even prepare it further. I can play rook b8. And this is an example of pieces working together toward a common goal, because the goal is a a strategically sound one. If that part of the board becomes open, it will pay dividends to you down the road because you've got this pressure, right? You've got the rook and the bishop actually eyeing the same area of the board, even though there's still pieces in the way. So it's a little bit advanced, but the main point of this was not the advanced lesson. What I was trying to get you to think of is planning. Planning is a word when at first people are like, wait, like, but what's my plan? And I was just trying to give you 2 big tips to take away. 2 ways that you can have as like your North Star when you lose your way is, all right, what are my pawns telling me? Is there a way for me to improve my pieces on that side of the board where they've given me space, where they've given me this flowing river? And 2, if that question has been answered, if I had 3 to 5 moves, what might those moves be? Like, what would I do if I could get away with it, right? And how would I work together? Already, if you do this, Michelle, remember, nothing I ever say is an excuse to blunder your queen. Blundering our queen is going to lose us games, right? And so I always tell that with students, like, as you learn strategic thinking, it doesn't mean that if you blunder your knight, you're not going to get your ass kicked. Like, pay attention and don't make bad tactical moves. But overall, if we're assuming that we're playing focus chess, where we're paying attention to tactics, this type of strategic thinking will put us on the right path to finding a plan, where suddenly we have those grandmaster moments that people have where they're like, it was like all their pieces came together and their pieces just were all in the right spot and my pieces felt like random dudes, right, just on the board. And that's how you get that, is with that type of thinking. And so that was one random plan. Let me just show, I wonder, because we're on this topic of strategic thinking, I want to show for a lot of people in chat asking, like, this same question applies even in, like, well, let's not even do that. We'll do, like, a big opening, like something. Sorry, I'm making random moves to get like into a mainline Berlin, which is a crazy opening with e4. But what I wanted to show here is, okay, this is the Berlin defense. This is a famous opening in the Ruy Lopez. We've reached a middle game position with the queens off the board. Boring, right? Who wants to play this? But we're here, and what I want to say is, even here, White's plan or Black's plan are actually the same thing. I ask, what are the pawns telling me, and if I can make a few moves? Well, here, the pawns are telling you we have an open file. We have a big center here with a lead pawn. They're also telling us we have 4 pawns versus 3 pawns, and that eventually we might use that. So White's next moves in the theory of this opening, I'm going to make bad moves for Black at first just to illustrate it, are things like this. And if White does well, again, Black making bad moves,
Whoa.
White starts getting things like this. All the pieces in the middle, they start punching the pieces back, and they start just coming to life, and just like, and so it's not always, the reason I want to show you that is because the plan I just gave you is not always like some sort of closed center, swim with the pawns strategic thinking on a closed wing of the board. It can be, if we're asking our pawns where we should swim, sometimes we have a closed opening. But it can also be just in a mainline open game, that's where our pieces go. Our pieces go where the pawns have also told us. It just means that it's an open center, not like a closed pawn shape. What is Black doing? Black's doing the same thing in this position. Now we'll make good moves for Black and bad moves for White. Black is, first of all, aware that his king is kind of in a dangerous zone. So Black is usually playing things to develop quickly. We'll make one good move for White, and then we'll play h6 because I guard this square. Random move for White. The bishop comes out. Bishop comes out. At some point, Black actually gets the king out of the position in a lot of Berlins so that they can put a rook on the d file and challenge. Then they'll start advancing their pawns, which is a 4-on-3, and they've got a couple of bishops on this side of the board. So what I'm pointing out is all the best openings, while I am oversimplifying a little bit, come down to asking ourselves these questions, like, what is the structure? What is the essence of the position, which is often told to you by the pawns. This is like number one grandmaster tip people never get, and they keep focusing on one move tactics and wonder why it doesn't work, which is to coordinate your pieces properly, you should coordinate them in an area of the board where it makes sense. Well, where does it make sense? Where we have space, where we have open access, where we have diagonals, files, or open squares. And those are created by the pawns. In the beginning of a chess game, you have none of these said things. There is no open access of anything. As the game develops a personality, we naturally get the insight to these are where the diagonals are going to be. These pawns have been traded. These are the files. And if you just start thinking of chess like this and your pieces come to where you have space and openings, you're already going to be in a better position. And then you add this next step, which is just If I'm constantly asking myself this, I'm paying attention to tactics, don't blunder my queen, but if I'm constantly asking myself, what would my next few moves be if I could coordinate? If I had 3 moves, what would they be? That kind of question with that type of pawn structured thinking, you're going to be golden. That's it. That's our plan. Critical thinking.
I like this a lot because I usually don't, like, the pawns always sneak up on me, and it's really interesting to think about it more differently, where it's like you're very thinking pawn first.
Right. That is a great line there. I'm gonna thinking pawn first. I'm gonna write that down.
I did have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
So in the last little opening for black that we played through with
yeah, we'll do it
the
again.
river diagonal of the pawns.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just show me one more time that situation where you had a bishop on D7, I believe, and then the knight, and they were all, and the rook was on B1.
Yeah. So I'll do it again right here.
I want to see what that looks like again, so I have a mental picture.
Okay. Yeah, and I apologize if I went a little too fast. Or sometimes I get excited when I'm teaching.
No. This is so great.
I want to get the point across.
I just sometimes. Do you ever like when you were in school? Did you ever read a paragraph and your mind was like, read that again? It'll probably be on the test. And you're like, nah, I got it. And
yeah,
then
and then you're like,
oh
no, should have went back, right? Yeah, and again, I think that part of the reason I was going too fast, or just in general, is I really wanted to, with the bouncing around, relay that before we get into the specifics here, which we're going to, and they are going to be on the test for your opening, so it's a good call. But it was more like as a chess player evolving, how are we going to think better, right? How are we going to approach things better? I just really wanted to illustrate that. Whether it was some random E4 game, which was totally open, right? The one I showed, the Berlin, or a closed Queen's Pawn game, which is a King's Indian. The idea of those questions: what are our pawns telling us? How can we coordinate and execute, a design plan? Those things should always be on the forefront of how we're thinking, even though the specifics of where those pieces go will always change. So now to the specifics of where these pieces go. So the idea is we have this pawn chain,
okay,
and we'd like to gain more space over there. And the way I played with knight a6 was designed to be very slow, but to show you how every piece on the queen side, including the pawns, if they want, can be a part of this dream together, right? They can be a part of the plan together. I already highlighted that there's an accelerated version, which is an aggressive one. Like, in some positions, you can justify the potential upside for the activity is that high that more aggressive players like Benko, right, will play things like this. But knight a6 is a move that when I ask myself sometimes where to develop my pieces, and this is, oh my god, I just had a flashback to a student who I had to yell at. I never yelled at a kid, don't worry, who I had to be frustrated with a few times to get them to stop doing this. And this move right here, I want to stop and show because it's the anti-plan I'm showing you. It's an example of what most people do, which is they heard the principle, well, you got to develop all your pieces before the middle game. So let me just develop. But they develop a piece instead of a plan. Development is important for everybody, right? So one huge mistake you see often in these kind of King's Indians is people putting their knight here. So this is a move in the King's Indian, and in a lot of other King's Indians, it actually makes sense. But in this structure, the knight actually doesn't have a future here. It actually, not only is it not on c7 where it supports b5, but it actually blocks the bishop from being on d7 where he could support b5. So basically he's sort of like stepping on the toes of his friend here. Right now they're wrestling each other for the square they want to be on instead of coordinating. They're wrestling for d7. And not only that, in this position, the knight doesn't really have a bright future on this side of the board either because he's also wrestling another piece for those squares. So this is a very good example of a development move in this structure that you don't want to play because the idea is to play on this side of the board, and the knight on d7 does not help that.
Okay.
So that's a good example.
I've definitely done that because I've been like, we put one kind of there in the London.
Right. Exactly, right. And that's a good example of where, like, right now you are learning a lot. The language, there's a lot of, like, letters and words you're recognizing, and then it's, like, putting it together in the sentence and the paragraphs, right? So knight a6 is a move that goes for this plan. And white does something good, castles, and now you go here. on c7 where you're preparing to open the position.
Okay.
Another good idea about the knight here, and this is, well, okay. I'm going to prevent myself from bouncing. I'm going to show you the plan you requested to see to the end, and then we're going to come back to another idea here. So now let's say they make a random move. They can even make, okay, like rook e1. Like, that's a good move. Now you play bishop d7, and you're trying to prepare to gain some space over here, to play b5 and open up things. So something random played for them. Now, you're still in a spot where, unfortunately, b5 has more attackers than you do. They have 3, and you only have 2, so you still can't quite play b5 yet. So often rook b8 is played. And if we just take a snapshot of this position compared to, basically the position before move 7, right here, all 3 pieces here versus all 3 pieces here, prepared and ready to advance. White can even play the move a4 to try to slow it down. And here you would actually want to play the move b6 before you play a6. Oh my god, and this is actually a really fun real-life example of when you learned en passant the other day. Let me show you why. So if you play a6 and white plays a5, what happens if you try to play b5 here?
They can en passant me?
En passant, yeah. En passant, capture en passant, in passing. So this might be really interesting, especially knowing the kind of person you are who really wants to dive in and fully engross and understand something. I'll explain quickly the history that we didn't get into in the Discord chat. A long time ago, before modern chess, which is the one we played today, was really established during the time of Queen Isabella, actually in Spain, who was maybe arguably the most powerful person in the world during her reign, and in the late 1400s, 1490s, or even 1480s. But she's the one who actually changed the rules, where originally it was like a duke that was the best piece, and she made the queen the all-powerful piece, Queen Isabella. But also around that time was when the rules changed as the game moved into France and Western Europe, where at some point they changed the rules that pawn could move twice on the first move instead of always having to be required to go one. But one of the problems with that is that if someone had totally outplayed someone and done a great job of extending this pawn up the board, they've worked hard to gain space, and they've created sort of like a crippling, right? This is a bad square, and now you can just bypass that pawn with not one, but just 2 moves, and that guy's he wasted his time. It didn't feel right. Right? So they changed the rules to allow 2, but in doing so, they also invented a sort of caveat, the modern French kind of theoreticians at the time in the game, in the 1500s, to allow en passant as an option, not an obligation. You have the option to capture en passant if you want to for that one turn. So what it does is it allows the person who worked hard to gain space to kind of reap the fruits of their labor if they want. So if you play b5, I don't have to capture en passant. But if I want to, I can do it for that one turn. And often in this position they would, because the change of this position leaves you with this sort of bad, weak pawn now that we've changed the structure here. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
So in order to prevent en passant, you actually have to waste the tempo here. You play the move b6 first to prevent a5, because if they play a5 now, you'll play b5. You'll go right by him and start doing the thing we wanted, which is opening up the queen side aggressively. And so when they do something random, now you can play a6 and slowly prepare b5. So even though this took a lot of moves to get here, maybe it's even better because the lesson of this day is really about coordinating our pieces and planning, not so much the opening. It took all these moves, but in the end, every single person on the queen side is a part of this. And if things open up, we've got a position where black is going to get the better of the queen side, because of the strength you've gained. And you've got this nice rook and the weak pawn. And by the way, don't forget about your ninja bishop that has just been waiting on the diagonal for some sort of tactic to strike, right? This is kind of like a dream sort of closed King's Indian. It's a very slow position, but the idea is you're playing in the nature of what the structure wants, and eventually you're going to open up space for all your pieces. So that's the specific plan I highlighted, but again, it was mainly about teaching you how to coordinate your pieces if you got 3 to 5 moves under your belt. There are other things here too. I want to show one other plan if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so another cool plan here, and another reason why the knight is actually often very useful. Oops, not that move. I don't know how that was in there. Often very useful on this c7 square is another way that you can play the position. And this doesn't go against the principle I gave of swim with the river, but it's like the next level of understanding. Because it's like, and I like to say it like this when I'm teaching little kids. I say, like, if you don't like the river, then just get out and go find somewhere else to swim. Okay? So there's the swim with the river. Always be thinking about how we're coordinating our pieces with our plans. Maybe the river's wide open already, like an open e4 game, as I showed. Maybe it's a very closed game, like this one we just did that took several moves, kind of like snooze chess, but it works. The other option is to change the structure, right? So get out of the river or make a new river. So if you don't like the slow plan, other options that exist are things in this structure like e6. This is a Benoni move, actually. We're going to get like a Benoni kind of structure. The point is, what you're trying to do is... A Benoni? So I know. The Benoni is the baloney, as I like to call it. Oh.
Is that good or bad?
It's not. Bad? It's not. I like to make fun of the Benoni, but it's a fine opening. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
The Benoni goes like this.
For black.
Mm-hmm. You can actually play c5 on move 2, but you'll notice that's the same structure, kind of, just accelerated. And then you play e6. And after takes, and d6, e4, g6, I'm going to show you this. Take a snapshot of this position here. Take a snapshot of black. Ready? Take a snapshot of the structure and what you got. Ready?
Yeah. Okay.
Now we back up and go back to our thing with the move order that we had. I don't know why it keeps doing that. It's
original. This is the original.
I mouse slipped one time. I got to make the other line the main line. Okay, now I promoted it, so it won't do it anymore. So castles, knight here. And in this position, the plan we first talked about is a slow plan on the queen side, but you can also play the move e6. And again, what you're getting is a structure where what you're trying to do is open up. And if you remember taking a snapshot of what I told you to take a snapshot of, right?
It's the Benoni.
It's the Benoni, and you can play rook e8. Now, it's funny, in the Benoni, you actually still want to try to undermine this structure if you can. In fact, in some ways, this could be a tough position for black if they aren't able to undermine and open up. But the point is, the Benoni structure is kind of this King's Indian on the king side, with the c5 acceleration, and then you're trying to use the open e file you created with the Benoni, which in the main line of the Benoni happened happened all the way back on move 2, which was right here in the other line that we had, which was to play the Benoni like this with e6. So this idea of sort of stabbing at white's lead pawn to try to open up lines, right? And a funny thing about chess, the reason why opening theory develops is we could say, like, this feels very overwhelming and it's random. There's a million openings. But let's try not to focus on the specifics or even the silly names and more about the structural options available. Like, why is this idea of attacking white's lead queen pawn a common theme, whether in the Benoni move order or whether in that slow-jammed kind of King's Indian move order I showed you? The reason is that whenever someone has advanced a pawn this far in the center, it can't go back. It's both a strength and a target. So I'm able to give you an idea that you can rely upon. It's not like I'm showing you this and then like you go for it and they're like, oh, like fooled you, pawn goes back to d3. Like, you don't get a Benoni, right? First of all, that'd be bad. But the point is, you learn how to attack a structure because the pawns are the things that can't be undone. So e6 is a nice move. And at some point, black wants to open up the center and try to play the Benoni, or in the slow way as I showed. Eventually that is an idea you can use to attack white's center. Sorry, we've entered a lot of variations here, so I'm trying to click around. Eventually, attacking the lead pawn with a move like e6 is a common idea to sort of coordinate your pieces. You got your knight and your rook attacking the center. The next piece that might get involved, a bad move like this might allow it to happen with a tempo. Sorry, bounced around. I'm going to show it again. E6, something like this. We use the open file. if they played a move like this, you could develop your bishop to f5, and you've got all 3 of these pieces attacking e4. Even if they play a move like b3, there's moves they can play on the queen side, and you're looking to strike with things like this. You're looking to use the open e-file in a Benoni structure, right? You're also still not abandoning the idea of the bishop d7, rook b8, b5 idea. Why is it an idea always? Because that's what the structure is telling you is an option. You've got pawns that naturally give you this space. So if you're ever looking for a plan, what are our pawns telling us in the Benoni? They're saying use the e-file. We'll think about how our pieces can coordinate there. And they're also still telling us to think about the river we created in this closed pawn chain. And b5 is a constant sort of structural idea in this position. So to summarize, you are a King's Indian player. It seems that you are going to get positions like this in Pogchamps, right? This is something that you're planning on getting, these kind of positions.
Well, I mean, I've learned one opening for black. If there's a better one, I'm happy to learn that. I was just kind of...
At this point, well, especially with the long lesson we just did today, we might as well commit, right? And I think...
okay.
No, it's a good opening. It's a totally good opening. What we'll do now is we'll fine-tune it. Again, okay. Especially with the limited runway, and for some people who have played in PogChamps events that are, general sort of pop culture celebrities like yourself, they've gotten really into it. And if you end up deciding you want to take lessons from, I'm just in your own path to chess mastery, if chess becomes something you love, then that'll be between you and your coach to decide if you want to change up. But I think right now it doesn't make sense in a short runway to confuse yourself, especially because even if you decide you want to play chess for years and years to come, having learned the King's Indian is a very good open. I mean, the King's Indian has been played by many of the greatest in history. I mean, Kasparov and Bobby Fischer. I mean, Hikaru Nakamura, obviously the the most well-known streamer on Twitch as far as chess goes, right? Hikaru has won some of his best games of his career on the black side of this position right here, the King's Indian. So this is not a bad opening at all. That's not. If I imply, I didn't imply that, right? I was trying to say.
I was just saying, like, more so if everyone's going to be doing this. No, I'm happy to learn something new. I just chose it because I'm Indian. So
King's Indian. So you were like, hey.
Spoke to me.
Right, let's do it.
I was like, I feel like I have to do this.
Well, you should have done the Nimzo Indian then. I love the Nimzo. No, I'm kidding. The King's Indian's great. So is the Nimzo. The Nimzo Indian is another good one.
What's that one?
I'll show you just for fun.
Okay, yeah.
I was totally teasing. There is no what
is there a half Indian? Because I'm technically half Indian.
That is hilarious, and I have no idea. I don't think so.
Okay, that means whatever I play as black, that even if I make a mistake, that's the half Indian.
That's that. All right, good. In fact, maybe at the end of this event, we will have the half Indian, and that'll be the. You can almost halfway commit to a King's Indian, and that might get you there. All right, so the Nimzo goes like this. It's the same first move with knight f6. That's the one thing I am gonna correct about your move order. We'll come back to that in a second. But if you face e4, then you play d6. But if you face d4, you should play knight f6 first. Just for clarification.
Wait, let me write this down. Wait, can you say that again?
So if you face e4 on move 1, the king pawn, play d6.
d6, okay.
That's the right move order. If you face d4, it's best to play the move knight f6 first. It's going to reach the same positions, but the move order is just a little more accurate. Oh, wait. So if you're facing the king pawn, you do normally play d6, right? That's what you've been doing because it's like
I just do it every time.
Okay. That's fine. That's good.
So if it's the queen's pawn, then it's knight f6.
It's just a little more accurate. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Cool. Sorry, I was distracted.
What if they play like a random pawn?
Like
a2. I don't know. Does it matter at that point?
Like a2, a3 or something? Like this?
Yeah, like if they just throw a random pawn out. So, should I begin with d6 or the knight?
Here's how I would answer that. And I have to answer with a story. This is a good one. So, the reason why, same like philosophical principles that had me go on a little bit of a tangent about why the critical thinking and coordination is important. Same thing with openings, and that you don't want to fall down the trap of thinking that openings themselves are a magic recipe to victory. Like there's, like you just said, there's the King's Indian, Nimzo Indian, Queen's Gambit Decline. Like I'm literally looking at a bookshelf of like hundreds of opening books, and it's funny because this is what a lot of players do because they've convinced themselves that chess at the highest level is mostly memorization. A lot of people think that. They think it's memorization combined with like high IQs. And obviously there are things that have been memorized, although it's much more memorization of ideas and patterns than it is specific X's and O's than people would think. And also, the ability to calculate is important to see deeply, but most of the time, even the best players in the world are only calculating 3 to 5 moves ahead too. It's just with an understanding of where they want to shape the game in a different level. The reason that's important is because the most important governing principle to a chessboard is to control the critical area of the board. And what is the critical area?
The middle.
The middle. Very good, right? And I know you watched Levy's boot camp. I almost want to ask you to watch some of the videos I did earlier, and that's not a shameless thing or any a fun thing I have with Levy. But I do it might help some of our lessons from the language of how we're all going to teach the same thing. But I like to think of it this way because if you don't start with that before you start learning openings, you're gonna give yourself a bit of a path that leads to always trying to catch up. Like you're trying to catch up to the newest line or the move you didn't know, or I knew it up to there, but then they played that move and I didn't see that coming, or that hadn't been taught to me, right? It almost creates a perpetuating cycle of you're going to be blindsided. It's just a matter of time. But like the right approach on a really fundamental level is your pieces. The reason why you want to control the middle is because your pieces are more powerful if they're in the middle. More powerful pieces have more options. And more options leads to better tactics, basically, right? Like if we're really unpacking it. And so that's why people say like the dream position of chess, if we were to do just, silly things for a minute. We've seen this before on like a principled. If white could make 1,000,000 moves and black did nothing and you weren't allowed to capture their pieces or do anything aggressive past the 5th rank, creating a position like this is not far-fetched, or it is far-fetched. It's not far from perfect as far as like everybody and their cousin is in the most critical area of the board. Your major pieces are supporting those pieces, and you're ready to do some aggressive stuff, right? Some aggressive bleep is about to happen, and black is in big trouble. So that's never going to happen. But the point is that answer should be your guide to if anyone ever does something that's bad. Meaning, if someone plays a move like A2, A3, I would say the best move you could ever do if someone's playing, away from the critical area of the board is to dominate the middle area of the board and don't look back, right?
Okay.
And so I again, the story I was going to tell, and I've told before, is from when I was a chess professional, playing and teaching and doing all kinds of stuff. I was never playing as a professional because you have to be as good as Hikaru to be only a playing professional. So naturally the gambit becomes, for all of us failed child chess prodigies, you're looking at the face of chess failure, is naturally you pivot into chess business, which is teaching in the schools, giving private lessons, running tournaments on the weekends, and you do a lot of chess activities in the community. No shame in it, and it's awesome, and I absolutely had an awesome career there before the internet was a thing. And I used to give a simul regularly, and every time you give a simul, I give all kinds of simuls, but when you give simuls, you always face someone who thinks they're going to trick you with like a move like this on move 1, right? And then you make a center move and they look at you and they're like, right? Now I'm moving that guy on that edge of the board, right? And then you give the center, and then they're like, here, they're seeing if they're surprising you, right? And the point is, it's just silly in terms of how strong chess players think about it, because anything you're doing that is not going to challenge the middle area of the board, I'm just going to destroy you, right? Because more important than openings and variations and London and Benoni and all that stuff is dominating the critical area, because if you do that, you're just going to you're just going to blow your opponent off the board, right? So your goal should always be to dominate, and now you would just continue to develop aggressively and basically kill them, right? So the point is, often when you talk to people afterwards, like, they might even say, like, well, I thought I would throw you off your game because I was pretty sure you probably wouldn't have memorized something like this. And that's exactly that's what my point of the story is. Like, chess is much more than memorization. It's principle understanding. And the point is, like, if your opponents play bad moves, just grab the center and don't ask for forgiveness, right? And then develop your knights and then grab the center again. They've already made one move and they've basically given black the white pieces. By making one silly move, they've given black the ability to just dictate the middle of the board. And you should and remember, I already gave you advice that goes beyond your openings. Forget your King's Indian or all that stuff, right? Because the most important thing is you're going to get a pawn structure at some point that gives you clarity, whether it's open lines or not. And you're going to ask yourself my critical thinking question, which is, all right, we're here now. It's not exactly my King's Indian, but I've got my pieces on good squares. And if I had 3 to 5 moves, what would I do? Right? And as long as you stay on that path of, like, if I had a few moves, what would I do? You're going to develop good plans, even if it's a structure or a position that you haven't played 100 times. And probably if it's like this, you'll just develop, like, a great plan that just, like, destroys them, because you're just going to start... I mean, in this area of the board, where would I play? I would play in the middle of the board where I'm just, like, killing them because they made some silly passive move. Does that make sense?
Yes. So...
Yeah.
2 questions. The first one is, why doesn't it work? Like, let's say my opponent with the white pieces starts playing London. Why can't I just start going for that box setup on my side?
So
versus like a conservative King's Indian.
Does
that make sense?
Yes, it does, and it leads to, like, another, like, kind of interesting comment. So you're saying, why not, if they play the London, do I not just copy them and play the London?
Yes.
That's what you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good question. There's both a like, specific answer and, like, a more general answer. Like, one is, it's always dangerous for black to play copycat structures because there are a lot of examples where that critical tempo you're behind is more felt because you were doing exactly what white was doing versus going for something that was dynamically different. Like, very simple answer to that is, on an extreme level, clearly if I played a move like this, you would not copy me and give me your bishop first. Like, now you'd be like, well, I'm just going to take a free pawn.
Okay,
right?
Okay.
But let's say I'm not going to make a bad move. Let's say I go here and you're still not sure. You're like, well, I'm more nervous about doing this because if you do a little bit of calculation, you go takes, and at the end of the copycat, can you take this pawn?
No.
So black will always run out of time. So that means, so now you get smart. Right here you go, okay, I see what Danny's saying, but I'll just do this instead. I won't go all the way. But already, now you're in a otherwise symmetrical structure where you're passive, and a position like this can actually be super dangerous because you've moved your bishop outside of the light square pawn chain, and sometimes in the queen's
outside of
pawn
the
game,
river.
Yeah,
that
but
we're
it's
trying to create.
Yeah, it's a little bit different than the river because okay, if you had a whole bunch of moves, I guess, and there were no tactics coming for white, and you could play like e6 and to get developed, it's not the end of the world that you've gotten your bishop, outside of the pawn chain. Instead of the bishop being here, she's outside the pawn chain. This is good, right? She's on an active square. But it actually, we only got here because white wasn't being as accurate and aggressive to sort of punish the fact that you moved your bishop out to challenge my London when I could have actually... It
requires them to blunder.
It kind of requires them to not be as aggressive, I guess. Not as aggressively taking advantage of it. Like, if you try to copy me... Not that crazy move. If you try to copy me, at some point you're going to get in trouble. I showed the concrete example of you're literally just down a move and you can't keep up eventually. And the other reason is that means you have to be defending passively. And yeah, so you did the London thing, but it wasn't actually as good for you as it was for me. This bishop is kind of needed in a lot of these queen pawn chains to defend the queen side. And so it's one of those positions that highlights, just because the piece itself is optically, Dr. Evil Fingers, visually more pleasing to us here than it is here. right? It doesn't always mean it was the best for the position overall. That bishop is happier, but what about your position, right? So that would be one way I would answer it. And I think it's dangerous to copy as black, because I would actually say this. The King's Indian against the London is actually very effective. If you play the London and someone plays this, it's going to be irritating for you, because let me just show you. One of the things that makes the London so effective is like that line I played where what happened in our game that you and I did, that little practice game. You ended up in a position with a very good grip over the dark squares here with all the things you have. And it's precisely because I went for d5 instead of like a King's Indian structure that challenges the dark squares. So this was an example of, or I think you had the bishop on d3, doesn't matter, where like this kind of line I was showing where you could have a good London attack is kind of based around the fact that you have good control over the dark squares in a London. So black is often trying to challenge that. And so the King's Indian actually is one of the more effective ways to approach a London, because you immediately start saying, I'm not going to just roll over and give you control over the dark squares. Like, it's going to be a fight, right? So now you keep going with the London, and actually the London is not always that great against the King's Indian, because your whole idea is this attack, which often, desires you to put a piece on a dark square. That doesn't happen in a King's Indian, because black already has control over that square. So the King's Indian is an effective approach against the London. Long-winded way of saying it.
Okay.
So what would you do if you were playing white against a King's Indian? Well, actually the best thing for you to do is at some point to probably pivot away from a traditional London in a lot of these positions and try to go back for e4 and use what they've given you. They've given you space, and you should probably grab it. What?
To make the box.
Yeah, make the box kind of thing. So, again, this gets a little bit tricky, but that's partly because we're into the specifics of, well, how do we do this, how do we do that? But that's why I keep always trying to pull us back to the big picture, which is you're going to keep practicing. Stick with all your openings. So play the London, play the King's Indian, play the Pierce against e4. Now, you already have this, like, whether it's on move 3 that you're on your own or it takes to move 13, you have a little bit of a pro tip in terms of how you're going to handle those. You're going to ask yourself the pawn structure questions I gave you. You're going to ask yourself what you would do if you had a few moves, which should help, because now already you're going to be getting similar pawn structures and similar piece development patterns again and again. So with those questions, it should help you like get even better and better at approaching the middle game from these openings you're getting familiar with. But overall, remember, like, if someone plays a move you're not familiar with and it doesn't seem to be challenging what the bigger chess principles are beyond our openings, like put our pieces in the middle of the board, right? Getting all of our pieces on their most active squares, rooks on open files, looking for ways to control the center. Those are always your deeper kind of governing principles, right? That are running you if you can, along with, as I said earlier, tactics. Don't blunder our queen.
Why is it that in the London or in any case, white doesn't just make the box? Like right out the gate. So
part of the reason is that there are different openings, ones that you're not playing. So already, very commonly, e4 is met with e5. So there is no box. We're immediately fighting each other.
Never mind.
Right?
Got it.
Same with d4. A lot of people play d5.
Now I'm understanding the theory so much more. Like, this is making more sense overall.
Yeah, cool. And yeah, it is like and remember, let's go back to remembering what you said about the box, because it's important that just because your opponent has more space doesn't mean they know how to use it. It also doesn't mean that it's the kind of thing you can't attack. So one of the things that was happening in our game that I went over with you, or the opening we had, was they got a big center against your King's Indian.
Yeah.
Right? And in theory, in terms of what we know is the bigger governing principle, they've got more space, right? They've got the center, and we know that's critical. But this isn't a position where they got space and now you're like neglecting everything. You're not leaving your king in the center. You're not developing your pieces. In fact, you're developing. You're getting your king out of the way, and as soon as you do, you now try to expose their center, right? So you end up turning their space into a target by attacking them on the dark squares, which is where your potential biggest strengths lie. So, and again, what have they done with the box? Yeah, they've gained space, but sometimes they wish they had the pawn here. Because if they had the pawn there, you're not even threatening to take them. They're just going to rinse and repeat, replace that pawn with another pawn, and they're maintaining their grip. So,
Okay.
but does that mean white's position is bad? No, not at all. It just means the game is going to start taking on this sort of like heavyweight boxer personality. This is the footwork before the tactics happen. So they're like, look, I can't maintain the dark square, so what do? I go all in with my space. I play d5, and they're going to be like, yeah, look, you got the dark squares, but I'm dominating the light squares, and I've got a big center, and if you give me 3 to 5 moves, we didn't do white side of it, right? What I'd like to do is not only get my king castled, but I'd like to use my biggest area of the board, if we're talking about swimming with the river. I've got 2 extended pawns to cash in even further. So one idea that white would go for in the Benoni, let's say black does your plan, the plan we were talking about, is I would do rook e1 like I was talking about. I would probably slow this down. And as soon as I can, in a lot of these positions, I might look to move to clear the way of the bishop and try to open up the middle of the board, where I've got my potentially biggest strength, right? And if you take, I'll take.
Oh.
And it doesn't mean you're worse or anything. I mean, the game is taking on a personality. Black is a little bit worse in a lot of openings to start, because if white plays perfect chess, white has the first move, and white has often a little more space to go with it. But, hey, Anna's here, your other coach. Shout out to Anna Rudolph.
Hi, Anna.
She just subscribed to my channel. Hey, Anna.
Wait, quick question.
Yep.
How did the rook on white side go from H to E? Castle.
I castled earlier.
Okay.
Right
and
here.
then the bishop moved back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually funny. It was an optical castling by hand.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, so, and I guess, to leave you with, like, actionable takeaways, regardless of all the kind of strategic thinking stuff we did, I do want to go over the Pierts really quick and show the difference between the E4 and D4 ones, because...
the what? The Pierts?
So, I keep saying that, and I can tell... So, what you're actually playing against E4, with E4, go ahead and play black now. You're playing D6.
Okay, let me switch my board around real quick.
Go ahead.
Okay. Wait, hold on.
So you're playing black here.
The queen. Wait, but if I face the king's pawn to D6. Okay, cool. Sorry, just checking my notes.
So in this one, I play D4. The same thing. You play your knight F6.
Okay.
But here's the biggest difference where it can get sharp, and this is where Pogchamps players will be prepared for you. So this is a Pogchamps, prep session. Suddenly, I hate that mode because I'm so much of like I just want you to get better at chess and big picture thinking and whatever. But I also wanted you to be as prepared as possible for specific stuff. And the reason it's called the Pierts, the perk, if you see it PIRC sometimes, but it's actually the Pierts, is because in this position, unlike the Queen's Pawn game, instead of having the extra C4 move and then knight out behind the pawn, I'm actually just not even going to play C4. I'm just going to play knight C3 right away. The reason that's critical is because it's more aggressive. So I'll go back and show. Again, on D4, we'll go with the main move order. Knight F6, C4, G6, knight here, bishop here, E4, D6, knight here, castles, bishop E2, C5. So take a snapshot. This was the same position we had many times, right?
Okay.
And notice, again, the C-pawn with the knight out behind it. That's what happens in Queen Pawns games in the King's Indian. In E4 games, the reason you can't play knight F6 first, like I told you against D4, is because they'll kick your pony. And now you're actually in an Al-Johan's defense, which can get really wild, and your knight can be chased all over the board. We don't want this. We're not playing that. So
Okay,
I'm explaining the
got it.
more nuanced stuff we haven't gotten to yet. So in this line, in order to get your King's Indian structure, which I'm approving, we're getting a King's Indian structure, but it's a Pierce opening. You have to play the move D6, because again, if knight F6, you'll get kicked. So you play D6, but that's a signal to them. That's a signal to them. I don't even have to waste C4 to get my knight here. I can play D4, and when you play here, I defend with my knight. And this is a much more aggressive opening for white, because while for you this looks the same, for me I've saved a significant tempo. Sometimes I use that square for my bishop, which is more aggressive. Sometimes I use this extra move to play the Austrian, which is a super aggressive line in the Pierce where they legit are trying to just bust you up before you even get out of the center. We got to learn all this stuff. We got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Because this right here can be the attack against the Pierce that gives you real problems. And so we're going to have to learn what to do against that. So, and what I'm showing is, yes, in a perfect world, if they just develop and you get castled, your position looks exactly the same. And your best plans often are still to play c5. This is actually a mainline theoretical move here. It's very similar to you. And nothing dynamically is very different for you here. Like, you're going to get a good position where you fight over the dark squares. Even a queen trade isn't bad for you because you've got open files. You've got this potentially very good bishop. We talk about that a lot in the King's Indian and the Pierce. But it really comes down to whether they try to expose the move order of e4 with something like the Austrian. This is where the stuff gets real. And we got to learn what to do against the Austrian. That's honestly got to be our next lesson, is what to do against the Austrian. In fact, I'm going to give you a homework assignment in the meantime. Some things to do to learn what to play against the Austrian. Yep.
Okay, and when you say Pierce, P-I-R-C, right?
P-I-R-C.
What does that specifically refer to?
It refers to e4, d6. That's a Pierce.
Queen's opening. Wait. Hold. Oh, king pawn. Okay, yes, got it. Okay, so that's what that's called.
So, let me show you something, Michelle. In your live chess board, do you see above the notation area, which is where it's listing out all the written moves? It actually says B07 perk defense, like on your you see that? So click on that. It's going to ruin your stream, but we're going to do it anyway. So click on the Pierce defense, which is just above. It's going to take you to a different page.
Yeah,
so it's going to ruin your capture, but I want to show you, this is our opening explorer. And you can go through variations and learn the lines from here easily. And in any game you're playing, not till after the game, because you can't do it during a game, that's cheating. But any game you play, any game you look up, the ECO code, which is what B07 is, that's a weird, it stands for Encyclopedia of Chess Openings. Ignore the code. The code is B07. A lot of professional chess players accidentally memorize the ECO. It just happens. But the code is not what you need to know. You just need to know that you can click, and you can go to the Opening Explorer. You can also just go to chess.com/openings and kind of start diving down the rabbit hole there. So that's what I would say is the fastest way to do it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So go ahead and head back to the live chess server for now. But I just wanted to show you that because I'll probably Discord you some homework and just say, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
I'll give you a video to watch.
Okay.
And just as a way to kind of catch up. You and I actually had a lesson planned for tomorrow. This we'll see what comes up if we can still make that work or if you
I'm down.
Bounce around. Okay,
I'm here.
let me check my my schedule, and a lot of this stuff is it's what I love to do. And I love teaching, and then I have to do other dumb work instead. So anyway, how are you doing right now? Are you sufficiently overwhelmed?
I feel like I had a Jimmy Neutron brain blast moment during this lesson.
That's good, I guess.
Oh my god. I liked when we were going over King's Indian, even like the bishop d7, knight c7, rook b8 thing, because I feel like sometimes I sort of autopilot through the opening, and then I'm like, what do I do now?
Yep.
And a lot of the puzzles are wonderful, but I feel like I'm always in the mindset from them of checks, captures, or move, something like very direct result move, and the concept of having 3 to 5 moves in my head to build towards something without it instantly getting foiled by something they do.
Yep.
I want to improve that.
Yeah. No, and it's super critical. And I think one way to add to that is remember that checks, captures, tempo moves. Some people like to say queen attacks because she's the first piece you think of in terms of attack a valuable piece. But checks, captures, tempo moves. is the proper line of, like, it's like a check down list. Like, if you forget to do it, you're more likely to blunder. So every position should have you considering and being aware of all the possible checks, captures, and tempo moves, right? But I think where people confuse is like what you said, if I'm reading what you said without saying it, is like, sometimes we get out of the opening and we think of tactics we've done our opening and we're like, we don't know how to find a plan or how to improve our worst place piece, so we just start looking for checks, captures, and tempo moves instead of realizing checks, captures, tempo moves should be like the insurance policy in the back of your head, protecting you in case stuff goes wrong. And yes, any strategic advice you're given, if someone blunders their rook, take the freaking rook, right? That's how you win chess games, is with large amounts of material. But the goal of this is, how do we develop plans where the best move could be coming from our opponent and it doesn't stop us, doesn't stop our goal? And that's where, like, high-level chess games are won, which is, it has nothing to do with if chess, nothing to do with cooperation. You're developing things based on the structure you were given. Yeah, there was some give and take early, but that's part of the game developing its opening. At some point, there's like a concrete pawn structure, a concrete place our pieces should go. We want to develop those plans. And then if our opponents blunder on the way, that's just awesome. Just take the pieces, right? That's actually the better framework of thinking, rather than, let me get out of the opening and I'm just going to start looking for the big three, checks, captures, tempo moves. Like, no, always be aware of the big three for both yourself and your opponent, but the plan should be always based on, what are my pawns telling me? Where are the open lines, diagonal squares? Where can I make open lines, diagonal squares? And if I had 3 to 5 moves to do it, what are those moves? That's 100% the right line of thinking, and everything else is just the tactics that come our way. And people, I even see people in chat be like, oh, no, you just like solve puzzles and stuff. That's just not true. That's wrong. In fact, even solving a lot of puzzles at first, like Puzzle Rush is super fun. People love solving puzzles, see what your score can get, and you should test yourself, because that's more like a measurement of whether you're getting better. But just solving Puzzle Rush will not make you better at Puzzle Rush, right? Understanding chess and learning how to see, tactical patterns. And I would rather you solve by theme. Do you know how to solve by theme on chess.com?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would rather you pick a theme and do an hour of back rank checkmates. Just back rank checkmates, and then sign off on the day with, now I'm going to do a couple puzzle rushes, like the fun, right? And if you do that for back ranks, and the next day it's, weak color complexes around the king. The next day it's forks. The next day it's pins. That's how you build your pattern recognition. And then Puzzle Rush is more like the fun test at the end that you should do, right? And that's me literally down talking our most popular feature on the site, Puzzle Rush. But the truth is, Puzzle Rush is super fun, and we did it to gamify something that can be a feels bad moment for chess players. Because you know what sucks about puzzles? No matter how many you get right, eventually you get them wrong. And before we invented Puzzle Rush, you reached a rating cap, and then you just started getting more wrong than you did right. And a lot of our users were like, I would do puzzles more. I know it's good for my pattern recognition, Danny, but it sucks to get told you're wrong all the time. And so Puzzle Rush, no matter how much you always end by getting it wrong, what do you remember? Your score, right? So Puzzle Rush became like the feel-good invention for the process of solving puzzles on chess.com, which is why we did it, even though Puzzle Rush itself is not as good for your tactical recognition as solving puzzles by theme. I would recommend solving puzzles by theme rather than Puzzle Rush.
Okay. And what do you think are some good themes for me to work on currently?
Like tactical themes?
Yeah. Like just maybe for today.
Yeah, so let's go to I should switch to a full screen mode, and our cams will be off, but our voice will be here. So Michelle and I are here, everyone. Our cameras are off, so don't yell at us. So I don't know if you have a full screen mode, Michelle, or I'll do it on my screen. If you go to just chess.com/puzzles to start, I would say that clicking on the custom option, and at this level, like, start with like the 4-move checkmate. Like, click 4-move checkmate at the top. Let me know when you're there on your. I don't know if you're going to follow on your stream.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm following around.
So you click on 4-move checkmate, and then click start. And it's not exactly a 4-move checkmate. In fact, they're giving them to me at like 2900 level, which really pisses me off because I'm going to get it wrong in front of everybody. So wait, hold on. I have to So, but what is the 4-move checkmate centered around? It's centered around the weakest square on the board being in front of the black king. So I'm looking at a position on my stream where I'm going to solve a checkmate because of the f7 pawn being weak. But I'm going to look at your theme. Okay, yours is even better. No, they're giving your ones by theme based on your level. So I'm looking at the one you've got. The weakest square on the board, Michelle, is the pawn that is only protected by the king. To start every game, those are f7 for black and f2 for white. So look at your board, I can see right now, and what two pieces are attacking the f2 pawn for you?
Queen and bishop.
Okay, so what can you do?
I would take with the queen first because they can't.
Well, actually visualize it.
Okay, okay.
Visualize it with if the queen is there, what can they do?
Nothing.
Nothing. So do it. Make it happen. Let's checkmate.
Yay!
You
Wait,
did
why
it.
was it called 4-move checkmate?
So and now this is awesome. Now we'll come back where my viewers can see the board because they're yelling at me because I'm giving you advice, but I'm not. So let's go back to the live chess, and I'm gonna show you. The 4-move checkmate, and we're back on camera now. So the 4-move checkmate is it's not the fastest checkmate because in theory your opponent can play really like idiot chess and you can win a game faster, but let's forget the math that you can win in 2 and 3 moves in theory.
Oh, the fried liver?
No, not the fried liver is similar to the 4-move checkmate in that it's based around attacking the weakest square on the board. The reason the 4-move checkmate is like the most fundamental, you got to know this, is because to start a chess game, in theory, it's the fastest way to win. That's why I gave that caveat. Yes, I know there are faster ways, but really the 4-move checkmate is it's the scholar's mate. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was. I thought when we were doing 4-move checkmate, I didn't realize it was like the principles of scholar mate applied in other parts of the game. I thought it was like you have 4 moves to get it to checkmate.
Okay, so very good. In fact, the way you just said that is literally how we should describe the feature. The 4-move checkmate pattern is the principles of scholar's mate applied to other positions. It's not always a mate in 4. In fact, It might even rarely be a mate in 4. It's just the idea that the f7 pawn, if we're looking at the board here, right? The f7 pawn is the weakest on the board. Tricks that go after that pawn, whether it's queen h5, whether it's queen f3, whether it's, as you said, fried liver ideas, where the knight and bishop, right, try to do the tango over here on f7. Like, whatever the pieces are, the principle of the scholar's mate is based around the weakest square on the board that can only be protected by the king, being these 2 squares. So it seems like, so you already know that. You've been working on your game, so that was not new language for you. But what it does do is, now if you go back to puzzles and click on the 4-move checkmate theme and solve, now you know what you're doing, right? You're going to get a bunch of puzzles that are based around, hey, look at the f2 square, look at the f7 square, these are the critical tactics. And so now if we go back to that, and I go back to the full screen mode, and again, I don't want to hear it. Everyone giving me flack in my chat that I didn't solve that position on the puzzles, okay? I'll solve it. Sorry, there. So if we go, what it does, and by the way, this is not a testimonial for the feature necessarily, but it is showing you that even for players of my level, for all those in chat making fun of me, if I really want to work on my chess, even I can go into custom, click on custom, and choose a theme, right? Like a back rank checkmate. Just like Michelle, go ahead and click on back rank, which is uncheck 4-move checkmate, and go down and click back rank, which is like the 6th one down.
Okay.
Let me know when you've done that.
Back rank.
Right,
just
so
back
check
rank?
Yeah, so check back rank and then click start.
Okay.
What it shows is that for you, it's going to start giving you back rank theme tactics that are easier, that are helping you build that muscle. But even for a player like me, it's going to give me puzzles that are super hard, but based on the back rank theme. In fact, I'm looking at this and I legit don't know the answer to this puzzle. It's a super tough puzzle for me. But because it's giving me back rank puzzles on like a 2900 level, and it's giving you back rank puzzles as you're just starting. So no matter what level you're at, it's good to go in, and if you really want to get better, bust your own butt and do an hour of hard work, right? And then sign off with a 3 to 5 puzzle rushes instead of just doing what's easy. So let me see if I can solve the one in front of me while you're trying to solve the one in front of you. So you've got, I'm giving you a clue. You've got a checkmate in 2 based on kind of a back rank idea. You've got a checkmate in 2. I'm going to focus on my puzzle so that my chat gets off me so I can solve one puzzle while we're here. All right, what's going on here? So, I need Hikaru. I need the survival mode Hikaru.
Oh.
What in the world?
Okay. I think it's this. Their bishop takes. And then no.
So I'm looking at your board while I'm solving mine, and what I would say is, remember our check captures tempo moves thinking list? But the rule of that is don't just go with the first check you see, right? The principle, if you really follow it, is you're required to look at every possible check before you dismiss or decide which one is best. Eventually, this process will get faster, so if it sounds right now like I'm torturing you, I'm not. I'm saying that I'm telling you without telling you that the first check you considered was not right, and now you've looked at the better check, right? So start with every check, and then go through those checks in terms of priority, right? So that's the right way to work, and it sounds like, well, what if I'm in a position where there's 50 checks? Well, in theory, yeah, even a guy like Hikaru, he just does it so fast. So you should always be considering those moves. The difference is once you develop that point, as I've said at the beginning of the lesson, where you're speaking the language, you're reading like full paragraphs at a time, not just one word, you'll know which checks to go for. But right now, you want to make sure you work through all of them one at a time.
Okay.
All right, darn it, I am not going to solve this puzzle, and I'm super frustrated about it. The chat's going to make fun of me, so hold on. It's got to be bishop h2, king h1, queen e5. No. What I'd like it to be is bishop h2, king h1, rook f4. Sorry, I know I'm talking and I'm irritating you, but you're doing great over there. You're on path.
So slow over here. Oh my god. Here.
Okay, I think I see mine. Okay. It's just like, this is not a back rank theme. I mean, I guess it is. It's just interesting because, so, fun fact about chess.com, Michelle, while you're solving your puzzle, is our puzzle themes are community-based. So this particular puzzle was given all of these tags by the community. So this is not a 4-move checkmate, because it's not based on that theme. It is attacking the castle king. I don't think it's a back rank. I mean, I guess it is the back rank, but that's not a back rank puzzle. I guess it is a battery. So, and so what ends up happening is I think a lot of our community members sometimes add tags. I wish they should. I literally want to make a note of this as we're going. In fact, I'm going to make a time marker.
I don't know why this is so hard. Okay, can I talk to you about what I'm thinking?
Yep, I want to hear it. Sorry, I got distracted by mine.
So, I was thinking queen f2, protected by the knight.
Okay,
the king moves
great.
over.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm just like stuck up on this bishop situation. Like, because then I thought if the queen goes here to attack the king again, then the bishop will capture. And then it opens up another square on the back rank.
So what I would say to start is...
Oh, wait. 1,
okay.
2, 3. Is that it? Oh my god.
1, 2, 3. Okay,
Queen
you did
F2, yes.
Yeah,
oh my god, I like forgot that you can capture things.
No, and you go for it. Go, you did it. Okay, and that's great. Okay, now this is a back rank tactic for real. So let's solve one more that you're looking at.
Is it just queen to A1?
Yeah, go for it.
Black move.
Okay, now they're just giving you puzzles in rapid fire. So let's go ahead and come back to the live chess, I guess.
Okay.
And I'll re-invite you to the analysis board. And I was setting up that last puzzle that you just did. Just so that I had it in case you were going to be in need of advice, but you weren't because you crushed it. So I'm just going to set up, and I'm going to invite you to the analysis board. Black to move. Okay, brought you back. So I just invited you to an analysis board. There you go. You got it. Sorry, it ruined your stream a little bit. You gotta close out of the...
Fix it.
Yeah, close out of the old analysis board we were doing. Now we're on this one.
Cool.
Nice. Okay. So, this is a traditional back rank theme. And a back rank theme, when we think of it, is mainly that a king is trapped by his own pawns in one way or another. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. And so the black queen comes down to the first rank and delivers a check, and white is checkmated no matter what they do. Eventually, you checkmate them on the first rank, which is what you did. So I'm going to reset it up back to the beginning. But the reason I want to show that, like, what it actually is that theme can start very simply, like what we just showed, which is like a basic check on the back rank, and the king is blocked, and you saw it right away, right? And eventually that theme can become, much more complicated, right? Where if I continue to set up this board and set up a position that's a little bit awkward and different, what we might have is now a basic position like this with black to play. We've got 2 rooks on the board versus 2 rooks, and with black to play, knowing where white's weakness is, what move would you play here?
I feel like I need to get something to the diagonal, that white diagonal.
Which diagonal? Say that.
The one here.
Okay. So why are you looking at that diagonal?
Because it's open.
Okay, which is true, right? But you don't have a bishop necessarily, a light square bishop anymore. You don't have but go back to what we just solved, right? Remember, what position were we just in? We were in a position where the back rank was open, and you gave a check, and it was enough to win the game, right? All I did not change anything fundamental about white's position as far as what the weakness is. The weakness in white's position is the back rank. Okay. What I did was add pieces onto the board to kind of get you to the next layer. So this is what I'm trying to build on in terms of, like, remember how I said we're going to start where we're still trying to sound out letters, and by the end of this you're going to be like not just reading words, but like hopefully speed reading, where, like, people look at a paragraph and they quickly get it. So the next step, you had a basic back rank. The next step is now there's pieces, and so the smoke is a little more misty, but it's actually the signal is very clear. Look at you. And you know what you just did in theory, Michelle? you just solved a mate in 5. 1, 2, 3, right? Or actually, I guess mate in 4. But if all that happened and white threw everything at you to stop it, but all it started with was like a very simple thing where you took the piece that was obviously kind of to be traded, and then that opened up the back rank, and you took advantage of it. By the way, when I say obvious, I don't mean easy. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to help you realize, like, we start with something that we recognize. Just like I say, checks, captures, queen attack, start with those. Eventually, the reason I want you solving by pattern recognition, even though all my chat is now I'm going to have to get over it. It wasn't a shameless feature plug at all. In fact, I think I spent most of the time making fun of chess.com's features and how we do it. But it is actually incredibly important educational. And most people watching this would rather like just go do Puzzle Rush than they would like spend an hour, check back rank only, and bust your ass and actually try to solve it. Because what you're going to get to, Michelle, is they're going to get tactics like you did with Queen A1, where you saw it right away. And then you're going to get tactics like this, which are kind of the same, just a little bit harder. And then we'll get tactics, right? And I'm going to continue to clear, right? Then we're going to get tactics where it's like the next step where we weren't so sure right away, right? Where the queen was, it gets a little more confusing or something like this. This is a good example for black. Why? Because here it's not as...
go back, yeah.
Exactly. One, you have to see that the initial move isn't possible, and the other move isn't possible unless you truly deflect the defender. It's also not so obvious that you should take this bishop here, because a lot of people don't like to give up rooks for bishops at the start, right? Because rook is worth more. But again, now that I've given you, what's the best move for black? Go ahead and play black.
Let me see. Okay.
So we're still looking at the back rank, right? So if you visualize that, and then white takes back, and now visualize that in your head, what square is now available to the black queen?
Oh.
Very good, right? You see where we're going with this?
Yeah.
So this is even though it's actually very close, it's that much harder because one, it's not so easy to sacrifice a rook for a bishop because that actually is losing 5 for 3 in theory. Even though it's really not a sacrifice because if you take they can't take back, right? They have to take it if they don't want to lose a rook, but in this case they do, and then go ahead and deliver the goods. Queen C1, right? And now you're mating. So, and we could continue to do this, right? If we went by all 3 of the positions we've given you, there was the one Queen A1 first, where it was kind of right in front of you. Then there was like a little bit of a removal of the defender tactic. You had to see a few moves ahead, but not lose sight of the weakness, which was the back rank. Now we've got one that's like a sacrifice. You have to sacrifice a rook for a bishop and visualize in your head that it only works because you remove the rook from guarding this square right here. And so eventually, if you keep going down the back rank puzzles, you'll get ones that are like 5-move combos and whatever. Or sometimes they're just 2 or 3 moves, but they're just harder because it's less easy, right? But you'll have a theme in mind. You know you're trying to do something on the back rank of the position. Now, all that said, with my acknowledgement that the tagging system is not always perfect. A lot of time, most of the time they're great. Sometimes you'll get a tactic where just do your best, and then you'll solve it and be like, this is one of those Danny was talking about. This is not a back rank tactic. And then you can just user snap and complain to me later, and we'll do it.
Okay.
But there, it's just making sense. And this is something that, again, is the way I would recommend. This is, if you really want to get better, like in a short amount of time, this is the doesn't always feels good, gets kind of frustrating. You do an hour of just one theme, but it's the grind of you're really trying to learn a pattern so that you can start to read that pattern when it's on the board faster. And then you read the more complicated pattern within it, not just a basic, oh, I see the back rank, there's a 1-move checkmate, it's 2-move, 3-move, sacrifices. It's removing pieces off of the back rank to clear it. And that'll be what you're building toward, and before you know it, you're speaking chess. There you go.
You make it seem so simple.
It's not simple.
Like
it's
so
not simple.
straightforward, I mean.
But we went over a lot today. I gave you like a lot of, like critical thinking in terms of planning, right? How to think about your pawns, and also some specific stuff in the openings. And then, this is the tactical advice. And then again, at the end of your streams or your fun getting better, if you want to always, I think it'd be a fun thing to add while you're trying to get better over this. Is like you could do this for an hour and then do a couple puzzle rushes and see if your score gets better. Because that's the random test. You don't know what pattern you're looking for. You just do your best. And that's a fun thing to do, even if it's not always the thing that's really going to make you better in the long run.
Okay. So focusing on 4-move checkmate, any other specific themes?
I would say 4-move checkmate, back rank. Yeah, I'm going to give you, because they're not by alphabetical order. So I'm going to give you like a top 5 list to focus on before our next, not just our next lesson, but our next, so we'll go to puzzles, go to custom. So to start, I would say, and make sure you uncheck the previous one. So like do 4-move checkmates are a great one. I would say that back rank is a hugely critical one for this level. I would say do fork and double attack. It's fork / double attack.
Okay.
And then I would do some pins. You know what a pin is?
Yeah.
Okay. Pin is good. So pins and forks are happening all the time. So pins, forks, back ranks, and 4-move checkmate tactics are great to start. And then I'm gonna say we're gonna go away from the themes after that for now and say like the top 5 to give you for now is then just do a bunch of mate and ones. It's right in the middle of the pack. Like then what you're doing at the end is like you give yourself a half an hour of just a bunch of positions where there's checkmate in one, no matter how you do it. Pin, fork, back rank, double attack. You're starting at the top of the food chain, which is any position you get, you establish where is the black king or where is the white king, and then you go from there. There you go. The mate in one will be a good one to kind of, just have awareness, right? Awareness of where the king is at all times, and that's a good one for now. I think if you do that for a week and we have another lesson and you feel like, hey, I did each one of those for an hour, like at least once, like we'll do some others, right? We'll do, okay. We'll move into, some other types of sacrifices or skewers and things like that. But pins and forks and back rank tactics, you're getting really critical in regards to your ability to read and speak chess. And mate and ones are just like, you can't miss checkmate if it's on the board. So that's why we start with that one. And there you go. That would be what I would say. So
okay.
How'd we do? Did we do okay?
Yeah, I have a lot of homework. So thank you so much, Danny. Thank you so much for letting me have this last minute lesson. Let me know if you'd like to meet tomorrow or later this week. I would love to. Thank you so much.
I'm just gonna see what's on the plate, but I'm gonna plan on tomorrow. Actually, I know it's back to back, but I mean, I already had it scheduled, so I think that I think if we can continue to do it, I know you're grinding. So are you gonna keep streaming now for a while, or what's your plan?
Yeah, I'll probably stream for a bit more. I'm gonna go ahead and work on my 4-move checkmate puzzles.
Okay. Cool. Well, I might hang out with my chat for a little bit, and then I'll probably raid you. And we hope everyone will go to Michelle's channel, use the command now, and chat everybody, and go give Michelle a follow.
And same to Danny / Hulk Danny.
Hulk Danny.
Everyone be sure to give Danny a follow and go check out his stuff as well. thekingofchess.com. If you like chess and you want to actually learn from someone who knows what's going on, be sure to follow Danny.
And we'll chat on Discord too. I'll send you whatever video stuff if I forget. I know you'll remind me because I know you're crushing it right now and that's your goal. So way to go. All right. I'm gonna head into live chess and hang out with chat a little bit. Like I said, I haven't streamed in a really long time, and normally when I do, I'm on the chess.com channel doing commentary. So I'll probably go check in with the wifey, see what I'm neglecting in regards to family duties first, and then when I'm back, I will continue here chat. So don't go anywhere. All right, Michelle, this has been awesome.
Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.
Cool. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye. What's up, people? Oh, that was fun, right? Lesson with Michelle. Khare? Now, I said it right during the whole time, but, now we're here. How's the music level compared to my audio? Are you happy? If you're not, what can I do for you in your life? Because I'm here to serve you. This is the entertainment industry. Did you guys see my spinny thing from earlier? If you missed the clip, it was hilarious. I got it. Music is great. Music audio level is great. You can hear me. We got some subs coming in. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. The support is awesome. Always makes me want to stream more. Music audio is perfect. Thank you, BHH. All right, so I know you guys got some questions. I pulled up a top game to look at, and I'll probably analyze whatever, but we'll hang out for a little bit. And at some point, maybe we'll raid Michelle or Hikaru or Nemo or one of the many people streaming. So if I missed your question while I was on the break, I had to check in with my 4-year-old who's just out there setting up a tea party, and we're going to play Chutes and Ladders in just a minute. Talia, I know if you hear me, if you want to come in and say hi, you can. My boys, good news. So 2 wins today. First stream from the new house, everybody. My boys are currently playing like Minecraft and something else, and we have no internet issues. So I'm streaming, and they're playing video games across the basement here, and everything's good. Chessmate with the sub, thank you so much. 6 months in a row, you owe me $25 if you don't record some good YouTube content, okay? Is that from this stream, becoming YouTube content, or recording? Okay, I will work on that. I think I owe you a lot more if I don't start doing that. But we have big goals and a lot of big things going on at chess.com right now to hopefully set us up for the brightest possible future. That's the best way I can say it. That's a fancy word to say that Eric and I have been doing a lot of hiring, a lot of reorganizing, and just, chess.com is investing a ton. And the chess boom has been awesome for so many people, and we've been super fortunate, but we are taking that growth and putting money and resources back into the company. And if we get enough people hired, that means maybe I'll get to do a few more things I enjoy, like hanging out with all of you. So that's what I'll say as a long-winded answering the question that Chessbay asked by wondering if I'm going to do YouTube content. Okay, so we had some great questions earlier. Thank you again to the subs that are coming in. Chesscom Trim, what's up, man? I know that guy. Okay, so let me see. Hey, Danny, random thing from Junkie45. Can you guys make the drag pieces move option be drag only? I don't think people who pick that option want point and click as well. It's only a risk. That's interesting. I've never heard that request before. Doesn't mean it's not totally awesome and valid. One thing I always say is this. If you get 10 of your friends to make the same request via user snap, you'll probably get it done. Because I don't always... it always sounds great, and I understand we always are convinced of our feature, but we could do that, and people be like, no, I wanted to drag, but I also wanted the option to point and click, and that might be what Hikaru would say, right? I mean, so again, I'm just giving you the feedback of how we see requests like that. It's not always as simple as chess.com bad if they don't do it for you, chess.com good if they do, right? There's a lot of users and a lot of different experiences, so, all right. Jean-Claude Van Darnett. Oh my God. Get that guy a membership. Jean-Claude Van Darnett. I love that. Take me to the airport. Take me to the Sicilian defense. Danny, take me to the Sicilian defense. I had a wound. Take me to the airport. This is my Jean-Claude Van Damme. I am a soldier, a universal soldier. Take me to the airport. Take me to the Sicilian defense. Okay, I'd love to know more about how to attack with the King's Indian with the London. Other than Queen B2 and Knight G5 often ideas, I'm stuck. Wait for someone else to blunder. Haha. Yeah, aren't we always waiting for someone else to blunder? Jean-Claude Van Darnett. So unfortunately, I'm not going to go too much into that. That's more of a heavy lifting chess question right now, and we've already done a lot of that. That's not a bad question. Obviously, developing attacking chances, but like really developing attacking plans against a King's Indian, if you're a London player, can be tricky if you get one-dimensional, because as I pointed out to Michelle, right, if we bring up the analysis board, like the London system really thrives when 2 things are on the board. You ready? When this diagonal is open, not where it is with the King's Indian, which is blocked, right? and when E5 is open, which is not available. So if you're kind of I don't mean to say, Jean-Claude Van Darnett, you're a one-dimensional London player, but very often beginner players are more one-dimensional, right? And so, yeah, probably the best way to play against a King's Indian for London players is to consistently recognize the right transposition, the right way to play for something a little different. You can't just, like, put your head down and try to checkmate someone if it's not possible, right? So it's a good question, and I would say you're on the right track that you need to learn systems that evolve your chess overall, and so you don't do that. But otherwise, I would say, like, we're not going to go into too much more of that today. Sorry. At Daniel Rensch, when the whole Pogchamps 3 field will be announced, the new article still only has 11 names. We're working on that, like, literally before I went live today, I was working on that workflow with the team. We have 15 players confirmed. The thing that was held up was we really wanted all 16, but we gave our last participant a lot of time to confirm, and we may be going to our first kind of alternate there. But all 16 are pretty much confirmed. We'll have more announcements out soon about that, so just pay attention to chess.com news, and we will have it. Yep. Okay, if you convert, I hear you, Junkie45. We'll move off of that. So Granny Basher, first of all, if you have a username like that and then you have more offensive usernames on chess.com, I don't know. Remember, often what people do when I'm on camera or stream is they ask questions and imply that they've been neglected, when I might look into your account and find that maybe your IP address is full of abuse. I don't know. It may also find out that this is your 5th chance account, which is why we've ignored you. If those things are not true and you are just a good person asking, I would say email support@chess.com. Because if the things are true about you, that this is really your first time offense, as you say, and that you're just a good person with a Granny Basher username, then I love you very much. And email support@chess.com and you will get attention. If you're emailing support@chess.com and you're getting ignored, there might be a reason for it. Sorry, it might be a you problem, and I hope you make better decisions if that's the case. Hey, Maria. What's up, girl? The photo chess queen herself. Thank you for the raid. I've done some private lessons with Rain. Been doing that for a while, actually. I've known him for a few years, but he's kind of a big celebrity, right? And I'm not saying that other people in the event aren't, but I think Rain is a more traditional, from Hollywood, and I think sometimes, getting on camera to learn chess and this format may not be his poison of choice. But Rain is going to play in Pogchamps. He was super excited about the opportunity and the charitable element, so we're excited to have Rain, and we've done some private lessons and we'll continue to do so. I think he's going to be one of the better players, actually, in the event, so we'll see how Mr. Schrute, Dwight Schrute, can do. He hates that, but that's what everyone calls him, so you got to call him Dwight Schrute. Anyway, GM in the DMs, I love that name. Sorry, got to say it every time. Thank you, Maria, for the sub. Really appreciate it. All right. Yeah, there you go. Oak Shadow. That's right. Email support and say, Danny told me to email you. It's a great thing to do, always. In fact, you should start every email like that. You get better attention. Yeah, I think Rain is a dark horse candidate. Speaking of which... yeah, he'll be on camera for the event. Isn't necessarily. He may. I mean, he may do some, but I think more likely than not he will be playing. All right. Well, I'm gonna check out what's going on with some different streams. I love that Michelle. By the way, let's do that thing cool people do, where they go into the full screen and listen to people react to other people. I'm going to go watch my student right now and see how she's doing, because she's crushing it. And I want to go watch her stream, let's do it. She's solving puzzles. How is she doing? No, not the form of checkmate we were looking for, but that's because it was hard. See, this is where it's hard for her. Yeah, it's that move, and then just to take the queen, obviously. Because she's looking at the F2 square. Yep. And this is tough because, again, like, she's trying to solve based on the four-move checkmate theme instead of... or is she in back rank? What is she doing right now? I think she's doing four-move checkmate theme. And, now she's trying to... She doesn't see that the rook is pinned yet. You see your chat telling her that the rook is pinned. Okay, so when she gets ones like that with the straightforward four move checkmate theme, she's crushing it. So it's it's maybe not the worst. Oh, unfortunately, this is a position heard around the world. The famous throbbing position that went viral from Pogchamps 1. But it is good to see because it does occur in the Scotch opening. So regardless of that video, it's a theme and a pattern people miss. But so she's crushing this, so this is great. She's getting it. And I think that it's not bad that she gets some puzzles that are harder than just the basic four-move checkmate, queen checkmate. Because it gets her focused on the F2 square theme, and then she has to think about more of the board. Alright. She's nailing it. But what'll happen is she gets better and the puzzles get harder. It'll be fun to see. So, alright. We will come back. We will come back. I'm glad. Cool. I'm glad she liked it. And we'll leave it at that. So, a little more music before I go play Chutes and Ladders with my boo-boo. My baby boo-boo. Thank you, the Pulse Man. I'm glad you did. I love teaching. I love doing stuff. I got to start doing more prepared content. More YouTube content. Is Chutes and Ladders getting added to chess.com? Maybe, if Talia wants it. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. Hope you guys like my stream setup. I'm so proud of it. I'm gonna get a better camera. I can't quite go full Hikaru. I can't afford that. He's making more than I am right now as a streamer. But I am gonna get a good camera. But actually, isn't Arena King starting soon? That's a good question. Our Samba, like, how do you... Isn't Arena King starting soon though? Right? I could hang out in that. I just don't know that I could play Arena Kings. It'd be a lot of fun. I'd love to do it, honestly. That would be wild, but that'd be the longest stream I've done in a really long time. I think it's starting soon. Oh, it doesn't start till 6 my time. Yeah, that's an hour and a half from now, from Arizona time. So, so that's a no-go. How do I feel about the Dutch versus D4? So first of all, to answer the London question, let's do that. So in general, one very simple tip to answer. Who asked it? Our zombie asked. He said, "What to do if we start with the London system, but realize the opponent tends to do the KID?" So one of the reasons why I actually recommended this to, I think, Wagamama, who also got the London from Levy and Pogchamps too, to start with 2 knight f3, is this is a much more flexible move than bishop f4 in general. Like, bishop f4 is hugely committal to the London itself, whereas knight f3 is the move you develop in every London, right? But if they play g6 here, you have the option, if not the obligation, to transition into a more traditional queen's pawn game, right? You can play c4. You can also still play a London. There's nothing wrong with that. And so, but another thing you could do in a London, to answer our zombie's question, is to delay e3 and c3, and instead look for things with knight d2, and maybe you go for e4, which is a bit more of a hybrid. You also have options to play like a Veresov type deal, which is the knight coming to c3 and block of the c pawn, which is sort of positionally counterintuitive in queen's pawn games, but if you're playing a Veresov, e4 or e3 can both make it work. So I would say that, again, it's a hard question to answer, because really the big picture answer for most chess players is they still need to learn a lot more about all of the openings of d4 and e4 to effectively have a system. Because every system has a weakness, and every system can have something be thrown to throw you off. They can throw a wrench in it. Sorry. Anything can have a wrench thrown in it, but seriously, right? So if you're like asking me to give you, hey Danny, what's the recipe that I always get a good London against everything, no matter what? How do I do it? How do I always get the London no matter what, right? Like, I don't have an answer for that, because it's not the right answer. It's not the right way to think about chess. That's what I'm saying. So the point is, though, to be an effective system player, you have to know the weaknesses and all the transpositions, the way that they'll throw you off. You get what I'm saying? So knight f3 is the more flexible way to play the London anyway, because in theory, a lot of top grandmasters, if they face g6, might not still go for this. They might go for something else. Or if they do, they'll really know how they want to get the most out of the King's Indian London, rather than trying to like beat their head up against the wall of the bishop on the diagonal and the knight in the e5 square when those things aren't happening against a King's Indian. So you gotta just don't think about your openings as the key to your success as a chess player. They're weapons, they're tools, but you have to be like, you gotta be well rounded. So I'm still getting over COVID. Sorry about that. It's not a joke. I had COVID pretty bad for a few weeks. In fact, I still do not have my full sense of smell back. I'm probably at like 25-30% smell, which is one of the worst things for your quality of life. Like, for a while, I couldn't taste or smell. It sucked. Now I can smell a teeny bit. Your old Uncle Sasha, he has not smelled things this bad since Siberia. But yeah, that's for realsies. All right, there was another question earlier. My chat is actually pretty active. It's cool that I still got like 3,000 of you here, given that, you know, who am I? This is nothing special. But I appreciate you guys being here. Where was the question? How often do you feel? Oh, Dutch versus D4. The Dutch is also, you know, like really good in especially in certain situations. Khare has used the Dutch effectively, so has Magnus. But neither one of them would deny that it's a principally flawed move to voluntarily open up your light squares, whether you're castled or not. You know, even some of the more aggressive systems that fully try to expose that, like the Staunton Gambit, have been in vogue and super popular because of the risks and dangers in rapid chess, especially, of creating these types of problems. So I think the Dutch is good. I think that I kind of recommend sometimes that people try the Stonewall, because if you can get away with these moves and they haven't like taken advantage of a mainline Slav, you could get away with a Stonewall, and you've eliminated some of the lines that are the sharpest for the Dutch to face if you're really into that structure and you want to get something different. Otherwise, be aware of the sharpest ways you can have the Dutch challenged. And And but Hikaru has used the Leningrad Dutch effectively from time to time. But remember, like against good solid like prep, like and the Dutch is dubious for a reason. Looking for other questions. Yeah, it's an interesting comment from Z-Term. Zeeterm. He says he switched to E4 and his rating went up. You know, people can have reverse effects too. Sometimes a system player can seem better than they actually are because they're always getting the same positions. They happen to know better. But that eventually runs out when you start really reaching master level competition and above into the title. Like you get to a certain level of experience where often Blitz and Rapid don't count because Blitz and Rapid and Bullet online, you can trick anybody. But if you were playing well-prepared competition of Master Level Plus with a system only, the system will get exposed from time to time. And so if Z-Term is saying he switched, he went away from this mindset that kind of felt like a crutch to him, and he was just better for it overall. That's kind of what he's saying, and I understand that. Danny, you are so awesome. Rebecca Allerin, thank you. I am the Chutes and Ladders King. That is a fun fact, Bugcatcher. Daniel Rensch, if you could play anyone from history, who would you play? Matthew McConaughey, 10 years from now. The future Matthew McConaughey. Just kidding. Okay. All right, I think we're starting to wind down here. Maria, Photo Chess, she loves my new streaming setup. I appreciate that. My light went out here. My light went out. Your boy in Wisconsin. Oh, it's your boy. Whoa. Did I kick it too many times? Oh, that's why it's not working. It's like glitching. There we go. I fixed it. Oh, no, I didn't fix it. I didn't fix it. Oh. Man, that's less than ideal, huh? Oh man, you know you're in trouble when you move things around and a part falls out. Holy crap. Ugh. This part just fell out of the purple light. We have an emergency, everyone. We have a streaming emergency. The purple light that I didn't pay for. Okay, that's going to be dealt with later. Lights out, Dan. Lights out, Dan. Whoa, I can't see anything. All right. Thank you to everyone for being here. And it's a small space. Chess Bay, why? Is the sound good overall? Or is it bad? I mean, reading into the question, it's a small space. This is actually the shared home office slash. Maybe I'm gonna make it like exercise room with the wifey. She wants to get a rower machine, so we're gonna put like a rower machine over there. We got some books, family bookshelf. I got a picture of a buffalo over there. He's my buffalo spirit guide. His name is Bison. Bison, the buffalo spirit guide. He and I are super tight. No, I'm not in the closet anymore. I came out of the closet years ago, for those who don't know. Some of the most watched chess shows in the world were broadcasted from Danny in a closet. That is a fact. In fact, Nakamura versus Carlsen 2016 GM Blitz Battle Final. You guys want to go down the road? Let's go down the road real quick, and then we'll end the stream. Check this out. Check this out. Lots of people do not know that beforechess.com was a real thing. Beforechess.com made it big. Everything, let's see, what do we got? GM Blitz Battles. Oh, it's a thing. Battles Championship. It's an autofill. But the final, there you go. So this right here was produced, directed, hosted, and everything by me, by myself. This is before we had producers or an entire events department. Me and Robert are we're literally in a closet. with a green screen. This is a closet. I flew Robert out from New York. We were sitting. This is, let's just say we weren't socially distanced, right? We were sitting way too close for comfort. That's funny, Chessmate. Please go for it. Yeah. The fact that I didn't see an ad at the beginning of that video is actually that's a bad thing. She's right, and it still gets a lot of views actually. Anyway, but I produced this whole thing and did the thing. But this was an actual closet. We were literally in a closet. I'm not kidding, and because it was the best for sound and lighting. This was not as clean as our shows are now, but I think pretty good, given that I was one-man banding it with my foot on the drum, my left hand on the bass, my right hand on Robert's thigh. You know, you get it. Anyway. So we're done with that. That was fun. That was fun. Okay, so we're done. We are donezo. I gotta fix this light. I broke it. And I'm glad the sound in here is pretty good. That's good to know. It needs more sound stuff, you know? More sound stuff. That's the scientific term for soundproofing. Thank you to everyone who has been here. This has been a lot of fun, and we're gonna raid over at the old Twitch station. The old Twitch station. Michelle's still rocking. We'll probably raid her. I think that it would be awesome to raid Michelle, and I don't think she's gonna stop streaming anytime soon. She's my student. I'll see her tomorrow for Pogchamps. So let's do it. Head over there, everybody. Give her a follow, give her some love, give her some support. That's what Pogchamps is all about. Cheer her on for some more chess. Don't let her stop streaming until she's done everything I've assigned her to do. Now she's gone back to playing. Okay, we'll see how she does with opening stuff. And, you can hear my kids out there getting rowdier. We'll see it, and, we'll see you later. Bye, everybody.